The scream cut through the cold Arizona dusk like a rifle shot. Jack Remington froze where he stood, one hand still resting on the saddle horn. For years he had lived alone, speaking more to horses than to people, yet that single desperate sound, raw, terrified, dragged him straight back into the world of the living. He dropped his canteen, sprinting toward the mesquite thicket beyond the creek. What he found changed the course of his life. A young Apache girl, no older than 17, collapsed beside a dying fire, one arm wrapped tight in a blood-soaked cloth. She struggled to rise when she heard him, but her legs gave out. Fear filled her eyes, deeper than pain, sharper than any wound. "Please, don't take the cloth off," she whispered, cradling her arm as though removing it would kill her. Jack lifted both palms, voice steady. "Easy now, I ain't here to hurt you." But she was already drifting, breathing shallowly. The cloth on her arm was drenched in dark, drying blood, and something else. Something burned, something branded. Jack knew enough about medicine to understand that if he didn't treat her soon, she wouldn't make it through the night. And so, despite her trembling plea, despite the fear in her eyes that mirrored the fear of every hunted soul on the frontier, the rancher slowly lifted the cloth. And everything changed. The secret beneath the cloth. The girl's arm wasn't just wounded, it was scorched with a fresh, brutal brand. Not the kind ranchers used on cattle, but a mark carved by men who wanted to erase someone's identity entirely. Jack recognized it. A renegade militia symbol. Men who hunted native families under the claim of law, though all they served was cruelty. He clenched his jaw. The girl tried to pull away weakly. "They'll come, they'll finish what they started. You don't know who I am. You're someone who needs help," Jack said firmly. "That's enough." She stared at him a long moment, long enough that the fire crackled between them like a fragile promise. "My name is Casa," she finally whispered. "My family is gone." Jack nodded once. "Then tonight, you ain't alone." The chase on the wind. Jack carried her to his cabin, treating the burn, cleaning the wounds, letting her rest in the only bed he owned. He sat nearby, sharpening his knife, not out of menace but readiness. Casa watched him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "You could have turned me in," she murmured. Jack didn't look up. "To who?" "The ones that did this to you. You don't understand. They branded me because I refused to lead them to Apache lands. They think I ran. They'll come." Jack sheathed the knife. "Then let him come." That night, thunder rolled across the plains, not from the sky, but from the hooves of approaching riders. Casa's breath hitched. "It's them." Jack rose, expression carved from stone. "Stay behind me." The militia descended with torches and rifles, circling the cabin like wolves. Their leader shouted, "Hand over the girl. She's a traitor to the new order." Jack stepped onto the porch slowly, calmly, like a man with nothing left to lose. "That girl ain't going anywhere," he called back. The leader sneered. "You're willing to die for her." Jack's voice didn't waver. "I'm willing to live for her. And that means you ain't touching her again." A tense silence. Then, gunfire. The night exploded. Jack fought with everything he had, sharpshooting born of lonely years and quiet rage. But there were too many. When he stumbled back into the cabin, blood running down his shoulder, Casa stepped forward holding his rifle. "I can help," she said quietly. Her hands trembled, but her gaze didn't. Together, they drove the militia back into the dark. Their leader fell last, vanishing into the brush. With a bullet in his leg, swearing he'd return. A new dawn, but not peace. Casa helped dress Jack's wound, her fingers gentle. "You didn't have to protect me," she whispered. Jack winced but smiled faintly. "Nobody deserves what they did to you. You don't even know me. Don't need to. You're human. That's enough." Tears filled her eyes, not from pain, but from something deeper. Something like hope. For days the two of them rebuilt the cabin, fortified the ranch, and shared their stories. Jack told her why he lived alone, how he'd lost his family to a raid years before, how loneliness became easier than hope. Casa listened quietly, sometimes offering a story of her own, fragments of her tribe, her mother's songs, the laughter of a brother long gone. Two battered souls finding comfort in the ruins of their separate pasts. The return of the militia. 1 week later, the militia returned with reinforcements. Jack spotted the dust trail long before the riders appeared. "They won't stop," Casa said, voice shaking. "No," Jack agreed. "But we ain't running either." They took their positions on a ridge above the ranch. Jack handed her a revolver. "You ever shoot one of these?" She shook her head. He placed his hands gently over hers, helping her steady the barrel, not as a soldier but as someone teaching another how to survive. "This ain't about killin'," he said softly. "It's about protectin' what's left." When the riders charged, the earth thundered. Jack fired with precision. Casa, with surprising calm, aimed for horses' legs and weapons, not men. They fought not with hatred, but with desperate resolve. The battle was long. Dust and smoke filled the air. But eventually, the militia broke. Men who had come with certainty fled with fear. Their leader, wounded again, glared up at them from the ground before disappearing into the wasteland for the final time. And then, silence. Real, peaceful silence. Casa sagged with relief. Jack steadied her by the shoulders. "It's over," he whispered. The final revelation. As dawn broke, Casa removed the cloth from her arm, herself, this time. The wound was healing. The brand still ugly, but fading. "It used to be a mark of their power," she said. "But now, it's a reminder that I lived." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "A scar ain't weakness. It's a story of survivin'." She looked at him for a long moment. "And what about your scars?" He smiled faintly. "Guess I'm learnin' the same thing. The message that endures." Casa stayed on the ranch, not as a guest, not as a burden, but as a partner in rebuilding a new life. Together they planted the spring fields, rebuilt fences, tended horses, and learned to breathe again. Two lives once shattered by violence now shaped by resilience. By choosing to protect instead of surrender. By choosing hope over fear. And by understanding that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is trust again. A strong, inspiring ending. The frontier was full of cruelty, full of scars carved into the land and the people who lived there. But it also held something more powerful. The chance to start over. Casa found someone who saw past her brand. Jack found someone who reminded him he was not alone. And the ranch, once silent, once broken, became a place of healing. As Jack would later say, "Out here, the land don't care who you've been, only who you're willin' to become."